I have wasted more money than I want to admit on flowers that looked perfect at the nursery. Bright tags, big promises, beautiful photos. Then I planted them, waited for the show, and got 2 good weeks of color before the whole garden turned into green leaves for the rest of summer. If that has happened to you, you are not a bad gardener. You were probably just sold the wrong varieties. Because the truth is, not every perennial is built to carry a garden through the season. Some bloom once, fade fast, and spend the next 5 months taking up space. But a small group of perennials can bloom for 4, 5, 6, even 7 months when you choose the right cultivar and give it the one simple care step it actually needs. That is what this video is about. Not generic plant names, not vague nursery promises. Real varieties, real USDA zones, real bloom windows, and practical details that make the difference between 2 weeks of flowers and an entire season of color. Some of these plants thrive in poor soil. Some feed bees and butterflies for months. Some bloom when the rest of the garden is already tired. And the plant at number 1 reaches its peak in September and October, exactly when most flower beds are fading out. So before you buy another pretty pot that disappoints you by July, listen closely. These are 10 of the longest blooming perennials that can keep your garden alive from spring all the way to frost. Most gardeners who feel disappointed by Shasta daisies are not wrong. They usually got one strong flush of white flowers in June. Then watch the plant sit there doing almost nothing for the rest of summer. That is not the performance people expected. But the problem is usually not Shasta daisy itself. The problem is the variety. The one to look for is Becky, not a generic Shasta daisy, not an unnamed nursery flat. Becky specifically. This cultivar is stronger, more heat-tolerant, and far better at carrying bloom through summer than many older types. The flowers are clean white with bright yellow centers, usually 3 to 4 inches wide, standing on sturdy stems that hold up well in summer weather. In full sun and well-drained soil, Becky can bloom from late May into September, but only if you give it the one cut most gardeners skip. After the first big flush finishes in midsummer, cut the plant back by about half. It feels aggressive, but that cut wakes the plant up. Fresh growth returns, and a second wave of flowers follows through late summer into early fall. Without that cut, the show slows down. With it, Shasta daisy becomes a true long-season performer. Becky grows well in USDA zones 4 through 9. Plant it in full sun, give it deep weekly watering during the first season, then let it settle in. After a few years, mature clumps can be divided into new plants, turning one purchase into an entire white summer border. Purple coneflower is already one of the most trusted perennials in American gardens. But if you want the longest, strongest, most reliable bloom season, the variety matters. Look for Magnus. This cultivar produces large purple-pink flowers, often 4 to 5 inches wide, with petals that sweep slightly downward around a bold orange cone. It looks wild, strong, almost prairie-built, and it blooms from June into October in many gardens, which means it can carry color through the hottest part of summer and keep going when weaker flowers start fading. Magnus performs across USDA zones 3 through 9, making it one of the most adaptable plants on this list. Cold winters do not scare it. Summer heat rarely stops it. Average soil is usually enough. But here is where many gardeners make the wrong move. They deadhead everything. That may make sense with some flowers, but with coneflower, those spent cones have value. Leave many of them standing. In fall and winter, goldfinches and other seed-eating birds will feed directly from the dried seed heads. The plant keeps supporting the garden long after the petals are gone. The first year may look modest. Do not judge it too early. By year 3, the clump becomes stronger. By year 5, a healthy Magnus planting can be wide, full, and covered in flowers for months. Planted in full sun, space plants 18 to 24 inches apart, and water regularly during the first season. After that, it becomes surprisingly independent. Purple coneflower is not just a long-blooming flower. It is summer color, pollinator food, winter bird support, and long-term structure from one plant. Catmint is one of those plants people ignore at the nursery because it does not look dramatic in a small pot. No huge flowers, No flashy tag photo. Nothing screaming for attention. But once Walker's Low settles into the garden, it becomes one of the best long-blooming perennials you can grow. Despite the name, it is not tiny. In full bloom, it can reach about 2 feet tall and spread 3 feet wide, forming a soft mound of silver-green foliage covered in lavender-blue flower spikes. And the bloom season is remarkable. From late April into October in many gardens, Walker's Low keeps producing color with very little effort. The secret is one midsummer haircut. After the first heavy bloom begins to fade, cut the plant back by about half. Within a couple of weeks, fresh growth returns, and a second wave of flowers carries the plant through late summer and fall. Bees love it. On warm afternoons, a mature planting can hum with pollinator activity, and because the foliage is aromatic, deer and rabbits often leave it alone. Plant Walker's Low in full sun with well-drained soil in USDA, zones 4 through 8. Avoid wet roots. This plant would rather be slightly dry than constantly damp. Use it along pathways, near roses, or at the front of borders, where it can spill naturally and soften hard edges. For very little work, catmint gives months of color, movement, fragrance, and pollinator life. Every yard has one impossible spot: too hot, too dry, soil that feels more like gravel and clay than something a flower would choose. Most plants struggle there. Blanket flower seems almost built for it. The variety to look for is Arizona Sun. It stays compact, usually around 10 to 12 inches tall, but the flowers are impossible to miss. Red centers, bright yellow tips. Each bloom looks like a small sunset, sitting just above the soil. And the best part is that it keeps blooming from June until hard frost. This is not a plant for rich, pampered garden beds. In fact, treating it too well can make it worse. Do not over-fertilize it. Do not bury it in compost. Do not try to turn poor soil into luxury soil. Blanket flower often blooms better in lean, dry, well-drained ground, because that is what it was built to handle. Arizona Sun grows across USDA zones 3 through 10, which makes it one of the most widely adaptable plants on this list. Full sun is essential. Good drainage matters. Water it weekly during the first season while roots establish, then step back. Once settled, it tolerates drought, heat, and neglect better than many flowers people spend far more money on. Deer and rabbits often avoid it too, which makes it especially useful in exposed borders or difficult roadside areas. Blanket flower teaches one of the best gardening lessons. Sometimes your worst soil is not a problem. It is just waiting for the right plant. Hardy salvia is one of the best perennials for keeping a garden alive when early flowers begin to fade. The variety to look for is May Night. It produces deep indigo-purple flower spikes above aromatic foliage, creating strong vertical color from late spring into fall when handled correctly. And the color is intense, not soft lavender, not pale blue. A rich purple that stands out beautifully beside yellow flowers, silver foliage, and ornamental grasses. May Night grows well in USDA zones 4 through 8 and fits easily into most sunny borders because it stays compact and well-behaved, usually around 18 to 24 inches tall and wide. It attracts bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds, but deer and rabbits usually avoid it because of the strong scent in the foliage. The secret to long bloom is simple. After the first big flush finishes in late June, cut the spent flower spikes back to the top of the foliage. Do not wait until the whole plant looks tired. That quick trim redirects energy into fresh stems, and within a few weeks, new flower spikes begin rising again. With that one step, May Night can bloom from May into October in many gardens. Without it, the plant slows down much earlier. Plant it in full sun to partial shade with well-drained soil. Water regularly during the first season, then let it become more independent. Once established, hardy salvia gives months of color, constant pollinator activity, and almost no drama. It is the kind of plant that makes a garden feel busy with life without making the gardener busy with work. Coreopsis is one of the easiest perennials to ruin by treating it too well. That sounds strange, but it is true. Many gardeners plant Coreopsis in rich soil, feed it, water it constantly, and then wonder why they get lush green foliage with fewer flowers than promised. This plant does not want luxury. It wants sun, drainage, and enough neglect to stay tough. The varieties to look for are Moonbeam and Zagreb. Moonbeam produces soft, pale yellow flowers with a light, airy feeling. Zagreb is brighter, deeper gold, and slightly bolder in the garden. Both are threadleaf coreopsis, forming neat mounds of fine foliage covered with small daisy-like flowers from June into October. The individual flowers are not huge, but the quantity is the magic. At peak bloom, one plant can look completely covered in yellow. And because new flowers keep opening, the faded ones barely matter. That means very little deadheading is required. Coreopsis grows well in USDA zones 4 through 9, especially in full sun and average to lean soil. Do not over-fertilize. Do not overwater once established. Let the plant behave like the prairie-style perennial it is. After 5 or 6 years, older clumps may thin out or die in the center. When that happens, dig the plant in early spring. Remove the dead middle and replant the healthy outer sections. Suddenly, one aging plant becomes several fresh ones. Coreopsis is not complicated. It is steady summer color for gardeners willing to stop helping too much. Hardy verbena looks too delicate to be one of the toughest plants in the garden. Small purple flower clusters, low trailing stems, a soft spreading habit that seems fragile in a nursery pot. But once homestead purple touches warm soil and full sun, it becomes one of the longest blooming perennials you can grow. In many gardens, it flowers from May into November. That is not a short season. That is nearly the whole gardening year. The mistake is treating it like a formal border plant. Homestead purple wants to spread. Let it. Use it as a ground cover between stepping stones, along the edge of a path, at the base of a slope, or in open soil between taller perennials. The trailing stems root where they touch the ground, creating a living carpet of deep purple bloom that also helps suppress weeds. It grows best in USDA zones 6 through 9, in full sun and well-drained soil. Water weekly during the first season while roots establish. After that, it becomes much more drought-tolerant than it looks. Butterflies love it, especially late in the season when many other nectar plants have finished. That is one of the reasons this plant matters. It does not just bloom long for you. It keeps feeding pollinators when the rest of the garden is slowing down. Homestead purple is not a plant to control too tightly. It is a plant to guide. Give it a sunny edge, let it spill, and it will turn bare ground into months of color. Daylilies have an unfair reputation. Many gardeners remember the old varieties that bloomed for 3 weeks in July, then spent the rest of the season as plain green foliage. That disappointment was real, but it came from growing the wrong kind. If you want long bloom, the tag must say reblooming or repeat blooming. 2 of the best varieties are Stella de Oro and Happy Returns. Stella de Oro produces golden yellow flowers on compact plants that fit almost anywhere. Happy Returns has softer lemon yellow blooms and an especially strong reblooming habit. Both can flower from June into September, sometimes even into October, with brief rest periods between bloom cycles. That is completely different from old single-bloom daylilies, and they are tough. USDA zones 3 through 9, clay soil, sandy soil, temporary flooding, dry spells, full sun, partial shade. Reblooming daylilies tolerate conditions that make many perennials complain. But there is one simple task that improves performance. After a flower stem has opened its final bud, cut that spent scape all the way down at the base. Do not leave it standing to form seed. Removing finished scapes pushes the plant's energy back into new flowering stems. After several years, crowded clumps may bloom less. Divide them in early spring and replant sections with 3 to 5 fans each. The plants recover quickly, and you get free daylilies. That is the real value of reblooming varieties. They do not just survive. They keep giving color back for months. Russian sage is the plant for the part of your yard that feels almost impossible. Full sun, dry soil, reflected heat, the corner where softer flowers burn out, wilt, or simply give up. Most plants survive those conditions by looking miserable. Russian sage performs in them. From July into October, it produces clouds of lavender-blue flowers above silver-gray aromatic foliage, creating movement, softness, and color through the hottest part of summer. The tougher the site, the more impressive it often becomes. For smaller gardens, look for little spire. It stays more compact and easier to place. For larger borders, classic Russian sage creates a bigger, more dramatic presence. Both need the same basic conditions. Full sun is not optional. Good drainage is essential. Wet soil can rot the roots, especially in winter. But once established, this plant does not want rich treatment. Do not overwater it. Do not fertilize heavily. Do not bury it in compost. Lean soil helps keep growth stronger and more upright. Russian sage grows best in USDA, zones 5 through 9, and becomes extremely drought-tolerant after the first season. Deer and rabbits usually avoid it because of the strong scent in the foliage, and bees love the flowers. It pairs beautifully with rudbeckia, coreopsis, ornamental grasses, and blanket flower. Russian sage teaches a simple lesson. The hottest, driest spot in your yard may not be a failure. It may just be waiting for a plant that was built for heat. Black-eyed Susan is familiar to almost every gardener, but familiar does not mean ordinary. With the right variety, rudbeckia can become the plant that carries your garden through the part of the year when everything else starts fading. The classic choice is goldsturm, deep golden petals, dark brown centers, strong stems, a clean, reliable shape that looks good in mass plantings, borders, meadow-style gardens, and late-season beds. For something more unusual, look for Henry Eilers. Its rolled, quilled petals create a completely different texture, while still giving that warm, golden rudbeckia effect. Both can bloom from June into fall, with peak performance arriving in September and October, when many gardens are already winding down. That timing is what makes rudbeckia so valuable. It does not just add color. It extends the emotional life of the garden. Rudbeckia grows well in USDA zones 3 through 9 and prefers full sun with average, well-drained soil. Do not over-fertilize it. Rich soil can create tall, floppy growth with fewer flowers. Ordinary soil often produces stronger stems and heavier bloom. Plant 18 to 24 inches apart, water weekly during the first season, then allow established plants to become more independent. And when flowers fade, leave many seed heads standing. Goldfinches, chickadees, and other birds feed from them through fall and winter, while the dried stems add quiet structure after frost. Rudbeckia is not just a flower for summer. It is a bridge into fall, a way to keep the garden glowing when most beds have gone silent. 2 weeks of bloom is not enough, not when your garden could be alive from spring until frost. The difference is not always more work. Most of the time, it is better plant choices. Not generic Shasta daisy, Becky, not any coneflower, Magnus, not ordinary catmint, Walker's Low, not a random daylily with a pretty tag. A true reblooming variety like Stella de Oro or Happy Returns. That is the lesson behind every plant on this list. The name matters, the zone matters, the soil matters. And sometimes one small care step, one cutback, one trim, one decision not to deadhead is the difference between a short burst of flowers and months of color. Imagine your garden in September. Not tired, not empty, not waiting for next spring, but still blooming. Rudbeckia glowing gold, Russian sage moving in the wind, coreopsis holding yellow color, verbena feeding butterflies, salvia still pulling in hummingbirds. That is what a long-season garden feels like. It does not peak once and disappear. It keeps giving. So pick 2 plants from this list that match your yard. One for your hottest dry spot, one for the border that always fades too early. Plant the right variety. Give it the first season care it needs. Then step back and let it do what it was built to do. If this video helped you find even one plant worth trying, subscribe for more specific, practical gardening guides every week. And before you go, tell me in the comments, what state are you gardening in? And which plant from this list are you adding first? Your garden was built for a longer season. Now you know where to start.